Well, welcome. My name is Sue Mack, and I am a member of Common Ground Communities. We are an organization that got together about almost a year ago to look at kind of the division in our community and the hate, all the hate speech, what's motivating it, how to bring people together, because we really like this community. And it's sad to see what's going on. So just right real quickly, just raise your hand if you're part of Common Ground Community so everybody can kind of see who you are. Okay, there we go. And we would love it if people would join us. So we value the sense of community here. We have a great community in the White Lake area, Montague and Whitehall. So many, other than maybe our football teams or our schools, we come together nicely, and we want to reinforce that sense of community. This is, I think, our fourth forum. Is that right? Fourth?
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder about that. How many of you have been to one of our previous forums? Good. And how many, this is your first time coming? Well, welcome. I'm so glad to have you guys here. We are hoping to do some education and, just ways to bring people together. If you have ideas about topics you think that would be important to hear about, we'd really like to encourage you to come forward. You can leave a note at our sign-in desk. If you haven't been here before and you want to get our flyers or our emails or whatever, make sure that you put your email down there and we'll get it to you. Okay, so just a show of hands for everybody. So how many of you guys are feeling that things are going really well in our community, in our state, in our country?
In the state, yes, in the country also.
Okay. How many of you are concerned about the direction that things are going? Okay, good. How many of you are terrified? This isn't the country you know. I got a hand there. Okay. That's just good to know. We would hope that there would be a lot of people from a good sampling of the community. I don't think we get a real good sampling of the community when we come here. I think we get people who kind of generally lean a certain way. If you know of those people who might lean a different way, I think it's important to have them here. We have to start coming together and learning together. So I'm just going to tell you, for Halloween I went to Chicago. I went to Oak Park, Illinois. It's just a little community right outside Chicago. And they are on fire. There is ice in the streets, armed, uniformed, masked men en masse who are taking people down near schools. So just imagine your 7-year-old. I don't care how you feel about immigration right now. Well, I do, but that's not what this is about. It's not about how you feel about immigration. Do you want your 7-year-old kid watching that? It's violent. It's scary. It's traumatic. So they have all kind of gotten together and said, this is not the spirit of our community. This is not the spirit of our country. We don't want this. And like I said, they have mobilized. It is amazing. And I just kind of wrote down some of the things they did. Most people have gone to rapid response. Are you guys familiar with rapid response? It's about if you see somebody being taken, kidnapped, abducted, whatever you want to call it, by an ICE agent. What they do is they get a lot of people together and they blow whistles and they yell and they block cars and they do that. But that's not the only reason that everybody's going. One of the reasons that everybody's going to rapid response is so that they can know. Because when you see that kind of violence of people in your community, it brings out something in people, And I said to my daughter, you better know what you're doing, because my daughter she's like her mother. Fight or flight, she'll fight. And she's got 2 little girls. I don't want her getting arrested. And she said, I did go to rapid response. I know what's legal. I know what's not legal. So I know what I can do. I know what I can say. And I just thought that was amazing. For Halloween, they closed their streets down so people could trick or treat safely, the kids, because ICE was in the streets. They had a large table of dry goods and canned goods set up, and it was like 2 of these tables, and it was piled, and by the end of the night it was empty because SNAP, people are losing their SNAP benefits. They have a system set up where if somebody who is a citizen, but they happen to be Hispanic, and they need to go from one place to another, that they can have someone drive them or take them. And so they've created all of this infrastructure around protecting their community. It's pretty amazing. So we are hoping that our wonderful community, in the event we need it, it may not look the same as that, but in the event something like that comes here, please make it not happen, that we can come together as well. And that's one of the things that Common Ground wants to do. We've kind of tasked ourselves with that community. And it's what we strive for, and I believe the sense of positive, supportive community is built into our DNA. Human beings need that. And so we have to counteract the hate and the division and do that. And having correct information is of vital importance. It was interesting as I saw some of the postings about this forum. There were Democrats who were saying it's a Republican ruse, and there were Republicans who were saying it's a Democrat ruse, and they're just trying to take away the electoral college, and they're just trying to do this. And I thought, this is what we as a group want to do. We want to make sure that our community gets the correct information. Because hopefully you guys are all aware that there are algorithms out there. And I learned something different when I get on my Facebook and social media than somebody who looks at totally different things. And they're getting totally different information. So what we as Common Ground Communities is trying to do is bring actual information, factual information here. So that moves us on to our program tonight. We're going to learn about ranked choice voting. It's been floating around for a while. You guys have all heard about it, and there's a number of opinions on it. And we've brought Joe Spalding.
That's right.
Joe Spalding here to explain it and how it works. And I personally am excited to hear how this is going to work, because I don't know. I know what other people have put on, but we get to hear it from him tonight. So we will become experts with this. I have a feeling that we're not going to have too many issues, but I just want to say that a few guidelines for tonight's discussion. Ask questions in the true spirit of learning. Ask so that for understanding. This isn't a time to get on your soapbox. Leave your soapbox at the door. We're here to learn. Listen to understand, not to argue your point. So I hope we can do that. And in the event that is a problem, or we have some issues, one of us will step in, or probably Joe can handle it. But yeah. So we're going to follow the same format that we've had in the past, where Joe's going to talk for an hour or so, and then we'll do some questions and answers, and then we'll kind of mingle a little bit, and we have to be out of here by 8 o'clock or 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
7 o'clock.
7 o'clock, yeah.
7 o'clock, and that's kind of an important thing for us to be out here at 7 o'clock. So we're going to push that. And so I would like to thank everyone for being here. It's my pleasure to, yes.
Oh, do you want to tell me about our next thing?
Yes, thank you. Is it December 3rd?
Second.
December 2nd, we have another forum coming up. Is this the AI one, or is
This
this?
is a keeping money out of politics.
Keeping money out of politics. Once again, nonpartisan. This is not a partisan group, but I would think that most people on the right and the left could say that there are a lot of benefits for our country and our community in keeping money out of politics. So I hope that you guys can join us then. So it's my pleasure to introduce Spalding. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. Super happy to be here. I was born down the road in Shelby, same hospital as my dad and my younger brother. If you know any of the Martinezes from the Hart area from like 40 years ago, 50 years ago, that's them. You know any of the Spaldings from Hesperia? Sorry, I'm kidding. They're great. They're awesome. Wrestlers mostly. So if you do wrestling, you might know my cousin Rudy would probably be the last one that actually did any action. But I'm super thrilled to be here. I have the best job in the world. I get to help spread democracy to the best state on the planet in locally, I say. So I love it. I'm statewide campaign director for Rank My Vote. This is my second run through a ballot initiative petition statewide in Michigan. How many of you all signed the petition that ended gerrymandering in Michigan? Well, thank you. This is pretty standard statewide inside of these discussions. I ran strategy on that petition program. Katie Fahey, if you know Katie Fahey in the story, she made a Facebook post, 5,000 people replied to this thing. I'm the politics guy she called to help build the petition program for her because we sat next to each other in public policy class in college. And you know, done some other campaign work in the interim, and now I am running this ballot initiative for Rank My Vote. We were trying to get over 500,000 signatures to put a question on the ballot next November to bring ranked choice voting and the more choice and more voice for every voter that comes with it to Michigan. And so a lot of the ways these conversations go is I like to start off before saying exactly what ranked choice voting is what exactly is the problem we're trying to solve. And the way that I view this is that right now voters are punished, and they're punished for something that's really, really odd, and the fact that they're punished for it is anti-democratic. And what voters are punished for is having more options in an election. And we can math this out, right? So if a third candidate runs in a plurality race like we have now, the winner needs 34% to win. If a fourth candidate runs, the winner only needs 26% to win. And the fractions get smaller and smaller. The thing that's super important about 3 and 4 is that a third candidate running, think about that as somebody running up to challenge the status quo. Think about that as an independent stepping up to run. Think about that fourth candidate running as being a potential secondary spoiler. And when the parties see that a third candidate runs and they might get some viability, sometimes one of the parties gets it in their heads to help get somebody else to run for that office. Split the vote, and then their candidate only needs to speak to 26% of the population, the voting population, in order to win. This is a fundamental accountability problem. Politicians that get elected are responsible to the voters that put them in office. When we were running gerrymandering, when the politicians manipulate their maps and they get to pick their voters using those maps in the redistricting process, they get to make those margins as small as 5 or 10%. They only have to speak to 5 or 10% of the voters. Part of them are locked in because of party, and they know they get that win. With ranked choice voting, it's not every election like we're looking at when it's gerrymandering, but it is something that has an impact on both the candidates that decide to run in every election, and then the way voters decide their voter calculus on the way to the polls. And speaking of voter calculus, ranked choice voting is a way to help codify that voter calculus. Right now, all of us as voters think all these different things about the candidates that run for office. We try to decide who's going to be the most likely to win, especially in a primary. And sometimes we're making blind guesses. Sometimes we're relying on talking heads on Sunday news shows. But none of us really know. And when we make those blind guesses right now, we risk having our vote thrown away. But not under ranked choice voting. Ranked choice voting is a simple upgrade to the way that we experience our ballots as voters. Instead of putting one dot in one bubble next to one name, that's your ride or die, that's your only choice, they're not viable, you're out of luck. Voters rank candidates in order of preference, first choice, second choice, third choice. If your first choice cannot win, your vote still counts for your second choice. And here's the second little big part of ranked choice voting: the winner has to have a majority. The winner has to have a majority. This was actually how we used to run our elections way back in the day when only landowning white dudes were allowed to vote, which is unfortunate, but when those elections were being run, the winner needed a majority in order to win. And what that logistically looked like was every week the folks would take their horse and wagon or walk downtown to their voting precinct, and they would go to the town hall and they would vote. And then they would come back next week and they would vote. And they would come back next week and they would vote until somebody got a majority. And that's a really, 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 really slow motion ranked choice voting election. We actually do use ranked choice voting in Michigan, and it's a little less slow than that. How many of you all have been to a party nominating convention for either of the major parties? Well, usually there's like 2 or 3. And so the party nominating conventions use a process called a caucus. Iowa famously does this for their presidential races. In the primary, they use a caucus system. And what a caucus system is if you like the difference between a caucus system and a ranked choice voting system are like the difference between tennis and table tennis, right? So tennis is table tennis. It's just you're standing on top of the table. And in a caucus, it's like a ranked choice voting election, except for you're standing on top of the ballot. The winner needs to have a majority. And so when you're in a caucus, you have a room. In my head, there's always tables that these candidates are standing next to. I don't know why a table is not an essential element of this thing, but when I act this out, you go and you stand next to your candidate that is by their table, and when the candidate is by their table and all the other candidates have their table with their supporters standing next to it, everyone can see who has the fewest number of supporters standing next to their table. They don't just stand there all night. The person with the least number of supporters pretty quickly is ruled not viable, and those supporters have to go choose another table and another candidate to stand by. As soon as somebody has a majority, that's the winner. This is the same principle as getting ice cream at the store. You go to the store for your favorite ice cream, they're out of your favorite ice cream. Why would you go home without ice cream? You get your second favorite ice cream. So, and it's important. It's important not just because of the math and the accountability issue, although those things are important. It's important because right now, we're, as we talked about at the start, not in the best place politically in this country. In fact, the most accurate way I would describe this, and this is full of hope on my part, is I believe that we are on the precipice of wide-scale political violence. I believe that, I don't know how bad it will get, but I believe that we're in the danger zone on that level. And to me, we all have an obligation as members of society to take a step back and try to pull us back. And that's why I love what Common Ground stands for, love the work that you all are doing. The aim is noble and it's good, and it's super important to have these types of discussions. With ranked choice voting, we are committed to this cause because we know it will lower the temperature. And it does this by changing the incentives of our politics. That winner-take-all energy, that winner needs 25% in a race with 4 people, 34% in a race with 3 people, that energy is fueled by negativity and by what I call the most cynical calculation in politics today. And this is something that folks that do consulting for candidates do all the time. They make this cynical calculation that they're going to go negative on their opponent. And when a consultant tells a candidate to go negative, they know they are telling their candidate to do something that's going to make voters sick, angry, tired, and stay home and not vote on election day. But the cynical calculation they're making is they're going to make more of the other guys' people stay home than their guys. And that drives turnout down. Election after election drives turnout down. How many of all heard about the situation at the county government in Ottawa County? Oh, so I'm proud of the recall work that I did getting one of the Ottawa Impact members unelected and eventually pushing them out of the majority. These guys are folks that went in the primary. There was perennial low turnout election after low turnout election, and they went around the Republican primary where these seats were decided, where a lot of seats are decided in rural Michigan, and they told all of the Republican voters that our opponents, who are, half of them are friends with Betsy DeVos, for good or for ill, and they said our opponents, who are traditional Republicans, they love abortion, and we're actually opposed to abortion. And they single issued the Republican Party, and they said mean, nasty things. And that's how Ottawa Impact won those primaries. And they swept into power. They tried to replace the county health administrator with an HVAC manager, HVAC repair manager, who was not qualified to be health administrator. They baited millions of dollars in lawsuits. They hired their crony to be a county administrator, who hired 2 of his cronies to be his underlings. They all sued each other in a giant stack of lawsuits, cost the country hundreds of thousands of dollars, and then another stack of severance on top of that. They eliminated funding for Meals on Wheels, and that's the tip of the iceberg. We're not here to talk about Ottawa County, but that is the consequence for a location like Ottawa County, which has its AAA bond rating to this day somehow, and supposedly was the epitome of what county government could be, and it just completely crashed because of low voter turnout. And that low voter turnout was because of a lack of choice and a lack of voice and a perceived lack of options for the voters there. I can tell you that having talked to voters across the state for Rank My Vote, and knowing that a lot of our volunteers are young men, if I've been working in the democracy space for more than 7 years now, and traditionally the folks that get things done in this space, that get the ink on paper, that knock the doors, that make the calls, are generally 45 to 65-year-old women who are recently retired, lots of times, lots of professional capability, and they go and they get things done. This is different. The age spread is equal, and of our volunteer corps, and the people that sign, and there's gender parity. I can tell you that when it comes to folks that are 20 to 30, I hear this more often from guys than women. I think that a lot of the women in that age bracket in Michigan have actually become politically active over the last few years because of reproductive freedom in 2022 and the Supreme Court overturning Roe v. Wade. But we didn't see that same level of action from the guys until now. And from their perspective, the thing that I keep getting told is that I'm younger than 30, and half of my choices for US president have been Donald J. Trump, right? And the other half have been, again, I'm going to say for good or for ill for the other side now, have been a Democrat that's worked in an administration with Joe Biden or was Joe Biden himself. And for those younger folks, even though they might see some of those candidates as being high quality or not, they don't view that long term as any type of movement on choice. It's the same thing election after election after election. And they get sick of it, and they don't think that their voice matters, they don't think that their vote matters, and then they end up staying home. One of the core things about Rank My Vote that I really, really, really like is that the change that we're making, that change in incentive away from constant attack ads, zero-sum politics, that cynical calculation, moves it towards having campaigns where candidates speak to issues that matter to voters. They have to speak to those issues because that's how you build a coalition of more than 50% of the voters. The other thing that this does, and we saw this in New York, where they're going to have their general election for mayor tomorrow, is going to get wrapped up. In their primary is a ranked choice voting election. And what we saw in their primary was a stack of cross endorsements where folks are like, I'm going to vote for this guy second, I'm going to vote for this guy third, and they cross endorse each other. Mamdani and Brad Lander were the famous two that said we're going to vote for each other second, but really it was all of the non-billionaire candidates saying they were cross endorsing, and they beat the giant stack of money. They won the election against the giant stack of money, which, I'm not here advocating for any type of politician, but what I will say is that with ranked choice voting elections, and they use it in New York City in the primary, they use it in Alaska statewide, they use it in Maine statewide, 2 of the more independent states. But in the places where it's used, in Australia for over 100 years, in Ireland they just elected the president using it, it elects candidates, the ones that win, that better reflect the people who actually live and vote in those areas. We can see successive elections in New York City. Not only did we have 30-year record high turnout in the primary this year, but the results of the elections in New York have left a city council that is more representative of the diversity, both ideological and racial, and also LGBTQ and gender diversity of the city is better represented across city council in New York, which I think is pretty cool. We get these representative outcomes, and in fact, if you start getting into the really, really heavy math behind ranked choice voting and democracy reform, you start seeing that in places where there are a concentration of a minority group, maybe they get Voting Rights Act protection for a period of time, but then they disperse, so the Voting Rights Act stops applying in that district. It's just how the VRA works. It talks about concentration. Through dispersal, ranked choice voting can help maintain representative outcomes in elections. This is super critically important because I think, how many of you heard that the Michigan Association of County Clerks issued a resolution pertaining to ranked choice voting? Awesome. So, yes, it was opposed to ranked choice voting. Yes. So, when we look at this resolution, and I'm going to get back to what I was just talking about in a second. I'm going to talk about the complaint first. When we look at the resolution that the county clerks passed, the stuff that has a risk of sounding petty, I'm going to machine gun really through, and it's really short. It's just factual and it matters. But two of the clerks that have been spearheading the media campaign on this, Lisa Lyons in Kent County and Lisa Brown in Oakland County, a Democrat and Republican, are on TV saying that 83 clerks voted against this, or voted for that resolution. This is not the case. 83 clerks weren't on the call. There's a clerk in the tip of the mitt who is currently effectively in a coma, but that's not the only one. We have emails at Rank My Vote from clerks that weren't on the call. Some of them are opposed to ranked choice voting, some of them are neutral on ranked choice voting, but it was not 83 clerks. That's the part that has a risk of sounding petty. I don't, like that's not actually addressing concerns that were brought up in the resolution. I don't want anyone thinking that that takes place of that. When we actually look at the resolution itself and the concerns in there, the concerns that they have fall into two main categories. And these two categories are really important. They're really good things to be concerned about. The first category is the workload of the clerks themselves. And that naturally makes sense, right? Like these people are going to have to administrate elections and any changes that go into them. And so they should be concerned about their workload. And I'm going to be talking about that in more detail and how we're addressing those concerns and how our policy proactively addresses some of those in a second. But I want to talk about the other basket too. And the other basket of concerns that they have are things that have an impact on voter participation or voter turnout. And I'm going to talk about those in more detail in a little bit. But the thing that's super important off the top on these are two concerns of ours. They were concerns when we were writing the policy. They're concerns of ours now, and they'll be concerns of ours, God willing, if we end up implementing the policy because it passes. Which kind of gets off to the start of the workload concern answers, which are our policy wouldn't be implemented until 2030. It wouldn't be implemented until 2030 because we want to have a robust education process on this. We want to make sure it gets implemented right, but there's another reason too. And it ties into the cost of the reform. The reform itself is going to be a one-time expense to upgrade software, essentially. When it comes to Michigan, we have 3 vendors for our election equipment, and the tabulation software is open source. Open source just means that nobody makes money when it's used. The code is public, so people can see the source code, and it can get reviewed. That's the tabulation on top of the 3 existing machines. But there's a kind of a even more silver lining on this, and that's because in 2027, 2028, Michigan is procuring new election equipment across the board for all of our clerks in all of our townships. That equipment will also be able to use ranked choice voting. There's one little spot, and the clerks specifically talk about this, and I want to clear the air on this, and that is the ability to straight ticket vote, straight party vote. Number one, if you want a straight party vote, if this petition passes, you can straight party vote. That doesn't change. From the voter experience, there's no difference at that level. You can also intervene. Your cousin's running for county commission and they're in the Green Party or they're an independent. You can change that one line, and that one line change will count, and the rest of your ballot will be automatically filled from the straight voting ballot. You can also, under ranked choice voting, rank the parties. Now, this upgrade is going to take a little bit of coding. It's not going to take a lot of coding. And the thing that I say here is the way that I know that is that I've previously, in between campaigns, I did a lot of IT project management for the VA on their ACA upgrades, for their nationwide upgrades, their Obamacare upgrades. But I'm not the guy that I'm relying on. I'm just the guy that can listen to the coders. My boss, Pat Zabawa, he is a volunteer executive director for Rank My Vote, but he is a software developer by trade. He is not going to be developing the software for this. be just somebody that understands the capability and the need. But when it comes to that, we also have other experienced implementers of ranked choice voting. You remember how I said Maine, New York, Alaska. We have folks that worked implementing those, including clerks, including other election administrators that are able to know the nuts and the bolts of how those tabulations are supposed to function. And so when it comes to the ability of straight party vote to work with ranked choice voting, it is going to be a one-time cost for that software upgrade, but then it's going to function. Folks that know a lot more about computers and how databases are handled internally, the more they know about that, the more sure they sound when they tell me that it functions. But it's also super important to make sure that voters are not just using a process that we know works and is tested, is transparent, but also that they're very familiar with their ability to use these new capabilities and powers that are available to them. And so that longer window after passing the policy until 2030 really is dedicated to voter education. And one of the really cool things about the work that we've been doing at Rank My Vote is I'm about to go on the 18th. I'm going to be going to the Upper Peninsula for the third time on this petition drive. Most petition programs don't get all the way to Iron Mountain multiple times. That's not something that is common in statewide petition programs. It's super important to Rank My Vote that we do have that wide profile because we're counting on building an education apparatus that's able to deliver news about ranked choice voting and the ability to use it if we are fortunate enough to get this thing passed. Speaking of Western Upper Peninsula counties, there are two counties in the Upper Peninsula. There are multiple counties in the Upper Peninsula that have an elected mine inspector. There are two that are supposed to have an elected mine inspector, but nobody ran. This is an office that you're supposed to be qualified for. I don't know what type of spelunking or geology qualification you're supposed to have. I just know there's supposed to be a qualification before you run for this office. And so nobody ran for this in two counties. In Michigan, when nobody runs for an office and it goes unfilled, the clerks have to do those duties unpaid, regardless of whether or not they're certified. One of the things about ranked choice voting is that it gets more people to run for office, even the offices down ballot that aren't ranked choice voting elections, because it opens up the top of the ballot to more options, more choice, and more voice, and that changes who can be turned out. It increases the amount of voters that can get turned out and go to an election. So in Michigan, if we're successful, we're going to expect more people running for office. We're going to expect fewer offices unfilled that the clerks have to handle. And on top of this, the last thing that we're doing that takes the clerk's situation into account, well, actually there's two more. One is that the policy itself puts into the Constitution that we're moving the primary back from June until August. I'm sorry, from August until June. I just said that backwards. And the reason why, and this actually gets to the bulk, if you listen to like Lisa Lyons, the clerk from Kent County, or Lisa Brown, the clerk from Oakland County, talk about the policy, you'll hear them say things like, I'm sorry, I'm going to do a quick pivot on there, but you'll hear them talk about like the ballot length itself, saying that we're going to make the ballot longer, we're going to make the ballot longer. To me, this is a legitimate concern if you are a municipal clerk, because you want to make sure that you have funding for everything that you're producing. And that makes sense. The policy itself guarantees funding for administration in that sense. But the thing that I don't understand as an advocate for policy and for election, like giving voters more power, is that saying that we can't make the ballot longer is essentially saying that more people shouldn't run for office. And that seems anti-democratic to me. It seems anti-democratic to me. I know that folks wake up, if we're lucky, every day in this country, and they think they contribute to solving a problem that they know something special about, even though they don't know how to run for office, they don't know anything about politics, and they choose to run for office. And I can't imagine looking that person in the eye and saying, no, I'm sorry, you're going to add one too many lines to a ballot, you can't run. It doesn't make sense to me. When we look at some of the other things that the clerks are concerned about, they're concerned about the length of time it takes for returns to come back. 79% of returns in ranked choice voting elections come back within 24 hours of the election being held. That's the stat. The reality is this country wasn't built on overnight election results. It was built on having solid, high-quality elections and having good candidates that are well vetted by the people and having a reliable result. And the way that I know that is because all of the systems built into our election process land on us voting in November, certifying up until January, and then inaugurating after January starts. And so there is this baked-in delay to make sure that that process goes in a way that lands on a reliable result, a high-quality result, and one that, frankly, we are a republic, and we want to be a strong republic, and the cornerstone of a strong republic is majority rule. And that's, at the end of the day, what ranked choice voting ends up delivering. In addition to, I'm going to come back to changing the temperature, and this is something else, and it's the thing that I hate talking about. I mean that, I don't say hate a lot. I hate talking about this. In this discussion, in any discussion, I hate that people threatened our election administrators with physical violence because they administrated election fair. I think it's despicable, and it's real, and it happened. With ranked choice voting, we're changing that zero-sum incentive, so we're getting rid of some of the toxicity in politics, but we're also taking the attention off from people investing every aspect of their personality into one line on a ballot and one person winning or not winning. So instead of going, like, my life's over, my guy didn't win after the first race is called, in ranked choice voting, you just wait to see how your second person is going to do. And we think that that takes a little bit of the safety valve off from, or it's a little bit of safety valve for the pressure on the clerks, as well as pulling us back in the precipice, from the precipice of violence. The other thing is fairly mechanical in the way that these interactions work. Like, how many of you have ever seen someone say something that that someone else probably wouldn't say in person, but they said it online? So I don't think they're doing that because they're evil people. I don't think that the consultants are making that cynical calculation because they're evil in their heart. I think that the system incentivizes that. I think that at the micro interaction level, if we're in the system that we are in today, it's super easy, not just for people to attack someone else's favorite candidate, but in fact, especially in primary season, to attack the candidate that's also running that's closest to your candidate. Like, we see this especially, the more you move from the center towards the extremes on either side of the aisle, the more likely this phenomenon is to happen. And then you end up seeing broken coalitions and bad politics and all these other things that happen. And the, with ranked choice voting, instead of people instinctively trying to go for each other's kneecaps, like when as soon as politics gets brought up, you start trying to figure out how to become someone's second choice. So if you all know that my best friend Ben is running in an election that's ranked choice voting, and that I'm going to vote for Ben because he literally is my ride or die since kindergarten, that you're not going to convince me to vote against Ben. The worst thing you can say to me is that you hate Ben and everything that he stands for and you think he smells bad. Because you want me to vote for your guy second. And the way that you get me to pick your guy as my second choice is by telling me how much your guy has in common with Ben. And I don't care if they're both 6'3", blonde hair, blue eye. I care about their issues and how they're going to vote on different things that matter to me. And so that's that micro level interaction that changes with ranked choice voting. And it does take time to implement, but we know that that's not a myth. We know that that's something that really happens, because when you poll places that use ranked choice voting, they say that the election they just witnessed is more cordial and more issues based. And then we see higher turnout every election. And then we look across the border where they're not having a ranked choice voting election and they're tearing each other's throats out. And election after election after election, voter turnout goes down until somebody like Joe Moss, the guy who created Ottawa Impact, takes over and uses it as a lever to get his friend Christina Caramo to run the entire Republican Party directly into the ground. They bankrupt their party doing this. This didn't just hurt Democrats. It didn't just hurt people in Ottawa County. It hurt the Republican Party statewide. Their campaign office was a post office box in a UPS store. This is real. This happened. It's not good for democracy when one of the major parties is trying to run their operations out of a post office box at a UPS store, right? That's not a sign of a healthy democracy. That's because the person that was put in charge of that party wasn't able to handle it. They were put in charge of that party because of internal partisan politics inside of the Republican Party by extremists that took over a county government where Betsy DeVos and Eric Prince happened to be from. So for me, there's a lot of stuff that's super personal about this whole thing. Having that close of a look at what this type of downward spiral can do, and what that type of negative politics can do. But at the same time, like I said at the start of this is the best job in the world. We are advocating for democracy, putting power in the hands of voters, and giving folks a way to vote for their hopes, not their fears. And to me, that's a miracle, that's amazing. The other thing is, it's surprisingly important locally in places. Right now, ranked choice voting has been passed in Michigan in Royal Oak, Ferndale, Kalamazoo, East Lansing, and Ann Arbor, but the state says they can't implement those, and there's administrative rules that have to get passed by the legislature in order for those to happen. Our policy, we believe in home rule. It is enabling legislation to allow those municipalities to run ranked choice voting elections if they want to. Oh, we've got a question. Sure, we can move into questions, sure.
Well, but I was going to say, is there a reason why you're making this a ballot initiative instead of making it like a law in the state legislature and passing it that way? I guess lobbying for it.
Yeah, I hear you. So the question is, why are you guys running a petition program with a constitutional amendment, which is what it is, and not lobbying the legislature to do that? Well, one, you're talking to somebody who helped build up Voters Not Politicians to run the petition program and gerrymandering there. You can't always count on the folks in Lansing to get things done. They barely passed a budget this year. They did, however, the Republicans in the State House, in front of the budget, put a ban on ranked choice voting up. It didn't make it into the Senate. The Democrats' position in the Senate was like, why don't we just let the voters decide? Let's inform the voters, let them decide. The Republican position is interesting to me because they do use ranked choice voting in their primaries for AG and Secretary of State. And they're very intentional about this. The reason why is because it reduces drama. That lowers the temperature thing. It reduces drama in the party after the primary. These candidates get through unscathed. You do not, if you're a major political party, you don't want any surprises. You don't want any skeletons in closets. But for your AG candidate who's supposed to be enforcing the laws, and for your Secretary of State candidate who's supposed to be enforcing the elections, both in a neutral, nonpartisan way, you don't want them coming out of the primaries super damaged by people in their own party. So they bake in this process to build broad consensus, and they use ranked choice voting to do it. I've had a lot of conversations with folks that hold elective office, also consultants too, and almost invariably, although some folks do come out directly opposed, and we've seen that with some of the clerks, but most of the time, they tell me, and some of the clerks actually have said this part, like, Joe, I see the value in this for my party in the primary, right? We understand what that broad consensus can do. We like having a little bit of extra money because we didn't spend it attacking each other. It makes sense to me in the primary. I just don't understand why we want it as a party. Why would we want that in the general? And the answer is, if it's good for the party in the primary, it's good for the general public in the general election, right? Ranked choice voting isn't for the politicians. It's not for the political parties. People ask me, is it good for Democrats? Is it good for Republicans? It's neither. It's good for voters.
Is it bad for Democrats and bad for Republicans?
Only if they are bad at talking to voters about issues. If they want to be marketing apparatus instead of permanent infrastructure for campaigns for people up and down the ballot, they're going to have a harder time in ranked choice voting. The last thing that I kind of forgot to say earlier is, I don't think I forgot, I kind of put this as the cherry on top. What offices are we talking about with ranked choice voting and general election and primary? When it comes to the primary, we're talking about adding ranked choice voting for the governor's race, U.S. Congress, U.S. Senate, and President. So that's the primary. For the general, it's those four, Congress, Senate, Governor, President, and then AG and Secretary of State. Why aren't we doing AG and Secretary of State in the primary? Because they're already a modified ranked choice voting process. It's already a modified ranked choice voting process that requires 51%, and it's under the party control. So we are not changing the primary for those two offices. We're changing the primary and the general for the other four, and we're changing the general election to a ranked choice voting election for Secretary of State and Attorney General. Those are the top of the ballot. They're the seats that voters are most familiar with on the ballot, but also, and this is another consideration to the clerks, because it's you can't quantify this, but and I understand the context of the Michigan Association County Clerks coming out opposed the resolution. If you listen to what they're saying on TV, when you read, like, especially when they're talking about I totally blanked on that, I'm so sorry. But the Michigan Association of County Clerks, when they are talking about our policy and they're talking about how they think that there's going to be, I'm so sorry, I am so not even on the right page on that. So like, and there is a point there, and I promise it's going to come back to me in 45 seconds. Yeah. This is my excuse for that I am fasting. I don't know if any of you all have taken the challenge to fast until we get SNAP benefits back, but it's my second day. So looking forward to grabbing a muffin now that the sun's down.
So if summarized, it seems like what you're doing is you're raising, making a mandatory majority to become elected for these seats. They do this in a lot of places. I think Louisiana governor has done this, so they have a runoff if somebody doesn't get a majority. This happens all over the country. You're doing is you're just saying we're going to put the runoff in one ballot. Because that's the whole idea here. Right?
Yeah, this is exactly right. And sometimes when you hear folks bring up the issue, is this one person, one vote? And the answer is yes, this is an instant runoff ballot. And they do use ranked choice voting on ballots for members of the military that are deployed overseas in states like Louisiana and Georgia across the South. They do that because a ranked choice voting ballot is the way that you mark your ballot to show how you would vote in any given runoff situation. So in the South, they use that for members of the armed forces deployed overseas to save time and money and get those ballots in on time so they can vote in those runoffs. Second part of this is a ranked choice voting ballot is the most cost-effective way to run a runoff type election that gets to that 50% plus one result. Doing a ranked choice voting instead of just one runoff, and there can be multiple runoffs in a runoff situation, doing ranked choice voting instead of just one runoff, half the price, higher turnout, because turnout is always lower in runoffs, which is interesting because some of the folks that are opposed to us, not on the clerk side, on the I call them election deniers, sorry, but they do have a problem with the results from the 2020 election. They are advocating for runoffs instead. They're like, why don't you guys just do runoffs? Well, because turnout goes down and it's twice as expensive.
And on that, same follow-up with that, on the places that do this already, you say Australia does?
For over a century now.
Okay, well, so that relieves me if that is too complicated. If they get it. No.
and they hold their ballots upside down.
I've been there, those lovely people. No, I was saying, is there enough time? I mean, do they? Because you think if you have an election and somebody doesn't get a majority, and now you're at a point of, oh, okay, well, those two people are going forward. Now you have some time to think about it. Is there any problem with that? Do people who do ranked choice voting say, gosh, I wish there had been a period of time between, like a separate runoff?
Do you ever get at the end, the day after an election, and think that the election season was too short? I am being flippant. That is just a joke.
Yeah. No, I was trying to think of something common.
So, yeah,
People are motivated by it.
I haven't heard that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Over a century.
Yeah. The thing that I hear is that folks are willing to wait a little extra for a good result. To me, I'm like, we just lost my grandma Martinez, the one that lived in Hart forever. this past year, and I love my grandma more than anyone else in the universe, but you couldn't go to her house without her offering you Nestle instant coffee, which is like godforsaken, nasty sludge. I hate it, I hate it, I hate it. I can only say that now that she's passed. So I like a nice pour over, and pour over takes a few minutes, worth the wait, worth the wait. So I love my grandma, I don't know. Yeah, we had a question, Sue?
Yeah, I have a couple questions. So you mentioned Alaska and Maine. Are those the only two states in the country who have ranked choice voting right now?
So they're the only ones that use them statewide. Yeah.
Okay.
Now, we've used it in Michigan. It was legal in Ann Arbor for one mayor election. So tomorrow, when we have a mayor that's getting elected in New York City, and they're like, yay, ranked choice voting, in Michigan and Ann Arbor for 1 year. And this is a really interesting story. How many of you ever heard of Hash Bash? No? No? U of M, they've been doing this for decades. And it started because a while back, a group, spin-off party, a leftist party in Ann Arbor, got this ordinance passed that made possession of marijuana before it was legal a $5 fine. And then they started having this Hash Bash celebration, which is internationally known in the cannabis community. Well, this group that got that policy passed, they also passed one of the first equal rights ordinances that made it illegal to discriminate against people based on marital status, student status, or being LGBTQ back in the 70s. They also split the ballot and got a Republican elected mayor. And nobody liked that in Ann Arbor. In Ann Arbor, they didn't like that. The Democrats didn't like it. The Human Rights Party was the name of the party, didn't like it. And so they passed what they called preferential voting, is what it's called in Australia. They passed preferential voting. And it elected a man named Al Wheeler. Al Wheeler was the first black tenured professor at U of M. He created what essentially would become the NAACP in Ann Arbor. And he wrote the legislation during the last constitutional convention that would essentially become the Michigan Civil Rights Commission. And Ann Arbor elected Al Wheeler in this ranked choice voting election. The other person had 49% of the vote. The Republican Stevenson had 49% of the vote. Al Wheeler won this in the second round of counting after the Human Rights Party candidate had the lowest number, and their second votes put Al Wheeler over 51%. There was immediately a huge backlash. You can call it partisan. I'm going to say that it was racist in Ann Arbor. And the Democrats didn't go out to preserve ranked choice voting when it was up for repeal, and the Republicans showed up in record numbers, so you had lower turnout, but record Republican turnout, and it was repealed in a 65% vote, 66% vote. This is awful. It's terrible. Ranked choice voting worked the exact way that it was supposed to. It delivered a more democratic result, and voters were punished for that. But that was the time that it was used in US. And the thing is, prior to getting it repealed, they tried to get rid of it in court. And in that court decision, and this is still standing precedent in Michigan in the Supreme Court law, because ranked choice voting hasn't been challenged like that again. And the court, the plaintiff, the Stevenson, said that there's no compelling competing interest to changing the system in this way. And the court ruled that, and this is deeply ironic, because in order to move to ranked choice voting, they had to move to paper ballots. They had to move to paper ballots, and so the Republicans were upset about the paper ballots in that election. Yeah, but in the Supreme Court language says that ranked choice voting, it implies that the Republican test is like, is the juice worth the squeeze? And in describing the juice, the court said that ranked choice voting essentially, heavily implied, didn't actually say it as the subject in the sentence, so it's heavily implied, more expedited results, more voter participation, better results that have more support from the broader voter base and more candidates running for office. That is current standing Supreme Court precedent for ranked choice voting. And I'll happily compare that to any resolution passed in opposition to our proposal any time of the day from Election Denialist or from the Michigan Association of County Clerks. So I've seen this thing work. Flip a coin. I'll go back here and then back. Is that okay, Sue?
Yeah. Speaking of ballots, what are these going to be arranged so that it's not? I don't know what I guess what let me voice my concern.
This is super convenient.
The concern would be can they be screwed up so that they're invalidated? Like today, if you went in
Yeah.
and voted for both
This is a
candidates,
great question.
you know, I mean, because there are going to be people who are just going to pick their same candidate 3 times.
Right, and their first vote is going to count.
Right.
So their first vote will count, but if they get eliminated because they're not viable, they're not going to get a backup vote. It doesn't do anything.
Okay, so the only person that hurts is them.
Correct. And
Well, maybe.
yeah, and so like when we look at places that have used ranked choice voting in the past, that's what the ballot looks like. But when we look at those, the error rates on the ballots that get invalidated happen at the same rate as the elections we have today. And the reality is you do have to constantly educate voters. Something that's another interesting thing about the Ann Arbor situation was that the Human Rights Party was floated on the back of the last time we amended the Constitution. Or I don't know if it was the last time, but it was one of the last times we amended the Constitution. We gave 18-year-olds the right to vote.
Oh, the U.S. Constitution.
Yes, U.S. Constitution. And we gave 18-year-olds the right to vote, and suddenly their youth voter turnout surges in Ann Arbor, which makes sense. But if you don't actively pursue, they don't turn out. So one of the issues with both ranked choice voting getting repealed in Ann Arbor and then Mayor Al Wheeler losing the next election was because the students didn't turn out after that. Yeah. And folks are talking about how we had record student turnout in 2022 in Michigan. They turned out mostly for reproductive freedom, some for voter rights, but MSU and U of M, we had lines of students on voting on the day of. And one of the things that I keep telling folks, talking to campaign managers out in the wild, is that y'all have to know that the students that are there next cycle are entirely different students. You have to do all of the outreach all over again. And this is something that folks have to get perennially reminded of. So.
Go ahead, Sue. Well, I still find it hard to understand why anybody wouldn't vote. I mean, when I first had the chance to vote, now granted, I'm 66, and I've always voted. And there's always been older white men, before me. There was Nixon, there was Reagan, there was Carter, very underrated, Bill Clinton. I didn't think that it was that hard for me to make a choice. And I always voted, and I didn't vote specifically for something that mattered to me, but I voted because it was a responsibility and that's what I was taught. And so I don't understand this idea, I guess, of not voting because it's not precisely who you want.
Yeah, and I hear what you're talking about. One of my favorite comedians, Steve Hofstetter, talks about voting like it's public transit, right? It's not going to get you to your exact stop, but you want to ride the bus that pulls you closer to where you are going and not the bus that goes across town. So I fully understand what you're saying.
It just seems a little self-indulgent not to vote.
It might be, and I can understand where you're coming from when you're saying that. And I'm not here defending any disposition.
Sure.
I can just tell you what I hear.
Yeah, I've heard that too.
Yeah, and I can tell you this, and because I kind of agree with you in a lot of ways there, a lot of ways. But the thing that I do know is that in election season, voting is ubiquitous. You can't pass a glowing screen, and glowing screens are everywhere, without some type of election ad, some sort of reference to voting. And we see voter turnout start at one level and then go down. So we know that people have chosen to vote and then they stop choosing to vote. And we know that something tips them in that direction. And when we ask them, often it's the toxicity. Often it's politicians not speaking to issues. There's a bunch of different reasons that they give, but more and more, it's the reasons that get given are actual frustration with the system itself. And so I understand what you're saying.
But it's assuming that we don't feel the same way. I mean,
Well, yeah, that's right. How many people in here have ever felt pinched voting for the lesser of two evils?
I would never call it that.
Sure.
I decide where based on my principles and my values, and I know you know, I always tell people, if you want someone exactly like you, then you're gonna have to run. But I did run for office, and I am on my city council, and so I do see it a little.
So, but you do recognize then that you have an elevated level of civic participation and motivation. So,
That's a good way of putting it.
no, I mean, like, that's why I could confidently say
I'm
on
entering
board
my
with you on this.
15th year on city council.
Well, thank you for your service on city council.
It was hard the last couple of years.
So sometimes you get yelled at about like zoning and permitting and stuff when you're on those types of bodies. It's
You know,
interesting.
no, it isn't really that hard. It's just showing up. But showing up gets tiresome. And dealing with people, I tell the people that sit by me, I respect the fact that you were elected, whether I agree with you or not. And it is probably harder the last few years, and I'm not sure why. It just seems the temperature is higher.
Yeah, I mean, like, we're in this to lower the temperature. So, I mean, like, and like, we firmly do believe it's a simple change. We're explaining it to 8-year-old future voters using Legos. If you haven't seen the Lego video, you should do a quick Google for ranked choice voting Lego. We did this demonstration in Grand Rapids. A random person at the event videotaped our volunteer doing this. And it got over 760,000 views on TikTok. Sorry. No, go ahead.
A question this may be impossible to answer, but what's more important to democracy? Ranked choice voting or ending Citizens United?
Yeah, that too.
Oh, so this is a really good question, and thankfully we're not in competition because we're talking about a U.S. constitutional amendment and a Michigan State constitutional amendment. Now, there are other forms of democracy reform that would require a U.S. constitutional amendment that would have to be cutting in line in front of ending Citizens United. I think that these are both super important things. I think that in the world where we're able, ending Citizens United involves winning state legislatures with a majority, like multiple ones with the majority that are in favor of doing that. It's incredibly difficult lift. Happy to work on that, like personally. That's not Rank My Vote's position, that's Joe Spalding's. When it comes to ranked choice voting, it's the most important voter rights legislation that we can pass in this state, and the way that I know that is because the election denialists right now are coming for 3 things, right? They want to purge the voter rolls, and we have a quote in the New York Times of the person that's in charge of this saying they want to do it based on ethnic sounding surnames. They want to recreate their attempt to stop just the Detroit vote at the Wayne County Board of Canvassers from being certified. They want to do that. And then the third thing is stop ranked choice voting, which goes back to why the State House decided to pass their ban. They're facilitating those 3 things. So.
This is just, it's more of a logistical thing. So the timeline is, the petition sheets have to be in by,
Right now, January 13th is our target end date.
January 13th. Okay, and so then we vote on it in the 2026?
November election.
Okay, so
Next year.
2026. And then it would be ready to go by the, okay,
2030.
23rd.
2030. So the next presidential election?
Negative.
No.
No, that's 28.
Next
It's 28, that's right.
No, 2032 would be the first
I
one.
think that's hopeful. My math screwed up, but it's a hopeful thing.
Yeah, the first one that Bad Bunny can run in.
I think of this, what I'm gathering from this is that it's going to get better, more issue-focused candidates. So it's going to cause more voters who feel like, hey, now that the issues are being talked about, let's participate. It'll steer people away from saying, well, I really like this person, but I'm afraid to vote for them because you can say, I can still vote for them, and you know, if we don't get a majority, then my second choice will count. But in that process, do people who are not using that system, like I mentioned, somebody comes in and they just go, oh, I only know the one name, I'm putting it out 3 times, you know, or whatever. That would seem like the only people that would hurt would be people who are only single issue candidates.
Well, there's some layers of theory in that, and the hypothetical. But
Right.
I hear what you're saying. I'm of the belief that we can reach every voter, and if we can reach every voter, then we can help them vote in the ways that best express their feelings and their beliefs, and have the biggest impact on their government that they can with their power. So my goal is to continue that education aspect until I can't walk anymore and can't talk anymore. When it comes to folks that are going to vote single issue on things, that they have the opportunity to do that. They also have the opportunity to do that and have a backup, actually, so they don't end up hurting. But like, these are things that we'll have to have conversations with each voter about. So.
I have a question. How many signatures do you have to have, and where, how, and what's the date do you have to have it by?
January 6th.
Okay.
13.
13, oh, got it real quick.
So, and that's not a hard date. Like, the way that it works, and I can explain how the system works, is that like the day that we choose to hand in our signatures, any signature that is more than 180 days old is not valid, and the stack has to come in before the start of July. It's one of the first days of July. We started on July 17th. That puts 180 days at January 13th. If the Supreme Court decides to eviscerate the VRA, and there's a big surge in our ability to reinforce protections for representative outcomes through ranked choice voting, in the same way that there was for reproductive freedom, we might end up extending the window if we're not there yet. But right now, our best guess of signatures is north of 120. You all right?
I'm all right.
All right. North of 120,000, possibly over 200,000. It's a wide window. It's hard to tell exactly how many signatures someone has while they're in the field.
I think Michigan is one of the only states that you can, or that actually has the, you can put like constitutional amendment on the ballot. So this is like, and it's a swing state. Obviously, this is one of the more important states to get ranked choice voting. So hopefully this ends up turning out.
Yeah, I think that's really true. I also think that like folks look to Michigan for reform. We're seen as a beacon of democracy reform, and I like that. I remember what I was going to say. Now I forgot again.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Are there any other states that are also working on ranked choice voting that you know of?
I don't know of any that are like actively working on right now. There are some states that have recently tried. Last cycle, a lot of them did not win. And my understanding of those, Colorado and some others, were that they were heavily top-down campaigns. They were financed by a billionaire and they weren't grassroots. We've got 2,300 folks volunteering for Rank My Vote out there getting ink on paper, and we're not paying for circulators. This is a change that if we get it, it's because Michiganders want it. And I don't want to be pointing fingers at other people that do the hard work that I do in other states, so I won't. But like, you know, sometimes you try to pay for stuff and you can't buy it.
I know a lot of the states, especially, or I think I remember, I don't know if this is exactly true, but I think I remember a lot of the states in the South and the more rural states have banned ranked choice voting. So that's another hurdle to pass for them, I guess. But.
Yeah. So the thing that I was going to say, now it's solidly locked in, thank God, is that when the clerks are talking about our policy and they're talking about the impact on their workload, it's really hard for them not to talk about other policies that have been passed in the past. Mm-hmm. And specifically Prop 2 that expanded voting rights and allowed for early voting and vote by mail. This was an increased burden on the clerks, and they weren't really consulted on this. That's the reason our policy, we see ourselves as being stepping into a long line of democracy reform in Michigan. For me, that starts with ending gerrymandering. We have the obligation and responsibility to kind of clear up some of the unintended consequences from the previous reforms. One of those is by making sure that we add that delay and moving the primary back from August until June. And when the clerks do talk about, the Michigan Association of County Clerks, folks representing that organization, talk about the policy itself, a lot of times when they're talking about their workload, they're referring to things that we're not responsible for. They're referring to a previous policy. And we don't just sympathize with that, we're doing something about it. And so I say this, and I am so serious about this, and I want to make sure that, I don't know if there's anything I make sure about it, but in the last decade, there has not been a petition program in this state that has affected how voting happens or democracy issues that has had and has taken seriously clerk input at a higher level than our petition program. We put it into our policy, we're putting it into our implementation, and we put it into our pre-policy discussion. Now, the Michigan Association of County Clerks is an independent entity. That's not every single clerk. And they'll be the first to tell you that there's over 1,000 municipal clerks. We talk to a lot of clerks, and we care about them, and we want to make sure that they're taken care of and they understand the best practices for implementing our policy, which is our baby, that we also care about.
So you can conceivably vote once for one candidate on ranked choice voting if you wanted to.
Yeah,
Correct?
yeah, and if there's only 2 candidates, you just vote for one of them.
Yeah, so I guess I'm struggling. I mean, I understand the clerks with the comment that, you know, it's more cumbersome and it's more difficult, but it'll work out. I mean, people will figure out the systems and we'll be able to. But for voters, if you just want to vote for one person, you can still do that, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so the other thing that I want to say is that when folks talk about complexity or confusion, like, they're not going to qualify to degree, right? Like a Lego, and I love talking about Legos now, a Lego is more complex than a wooden block, right? Right, but we all made it when we were 3 or 4 into using Legos, I think. I don't know. You know, so move from a real potato to the potato head. No. Yeah, no, but like a paper ballot is more complex than dropping rocks into a basket, right? But what's the payoff? What are we getting? I think the democracy is worth it. We got another one.
For the clerks who are complaining about not having enough resources or being too hard on them for their workload, I think like if it's good for the democracy, then we should just hire more like clerk volunteers or hire more people instead of having it be we keep first past the post because it's too expensive.
You want to hear another secret about Ann Arbor, like the paper ballot thing? Is that like, oh man, I'm sorry, I'm blanking on things left and right. This is my worst. This is my worst memory lapse things.
Okay, have a muffin.
It's
dark out.
Are you voting for your muffin?
Break your fast.
Oh man.
Was that the one that won the election, though?
What's that?
No, but which one won the election? You can tally it up.
Acorn Pumpkin Muffins are the only candidate who came to campaign in person. So it's probably too late now, but you should be best you
Double
know.
chocolate muffin is the only one that will protect our rights.
There's another criticism that gets thrown at us about ranked choice voting that was the opposite as it was back in the 70s. I can't remember what it is, but I'm just going to imagine that I said it and that you all giggled like for 2 seconds. I'm really, really excited to be up here and be able to talk. This is a really good conversation. I think we got through almost everything that I need to talk about. So if you guys have any more questions, I'm happy to stay here as long as you need.
I'm going to do the tallying, but we're trying to get this board up so that I can do it, because I kind of want you guys to see.
Oh, I
That's what we were trying to, she's,
Yeah, I want to know which muffin won.
Next time we'll get everybody on their phones and we can do it with that.
Yeah, paper ballot, that's the more secure one.
Oh, we filled these out.
yep, we already filled them out.
So here's chocolate chip, blueberry, chocolate chip.
So while they're adding that up, question. So I did talk to somebody who said that they're planning on, the state's planning on putting all petition amendment to the Constitution all in the general election year, no more alternate year ballot initiatives and things like that. So this is going to make the ballot longer already, right? Would that be, I mean, I'm saying, because people, we have 2 millage things coming up tomorrow to vote on. Well,
Yeah.
those wouldn't be in 2025 if we had the.
Oh, I hear you saying that they're trying to consolidate the
They're
elections.
consolidated to reduce the number of elections.
Yeah,
So I think the pitch has to be first that it's getting to 50%. Because as soon as you say, we got to get to 50%, we can't have people winning elections with 33% vote. And if we have, if people have, we have to have new viewpoints in.
Yeah, I mean, that's where the talk starts
We have to
for me,
get to
is that, like,
50%.
I say voters get punished for having fewer, so the whole point is 50%.
I mean, I've spent years listening to people tell me that they're turned off by politics because of the don't throw away your vote on a third-party candidate. I've said it myself, because in a practical way, the way the system is, it is kind of that way, and that's a terrible thing.
Yeah, I mean, like, I have this anecdote that I think a lot of folks share, and that's that in 2008, we saw voter turnout surge in rural and in urban areas, and that voter surge corresponded, in my opinion, with voters getting a new choice and a real choice for the first time at the very top of the ballot. And there were a lot of folks ready to go out and vote for Barack Obama in 2008. That was a candidate choice that got added up there. It was not entirely by chance, but it wasn't like there was a systemic calculation that made that happen. And then there was just a massive turnout push anyway.
Blueberry and cinnamon.
Oh, we're gonna have some rounds. This is awesome.
I do.
When you're talking about switching and making a majority currently for the president, there doesn't need to be a majority in the states to decide that separately.
So you would be voting for electors.
Right. Well, yeah, I understand how that system works. What I'm saying is that in the U.S. general election, there's no runoff.
I'm the
Abe
only
Lincoln
one
was
that
one,
voted.
One with a
I
minority,
voted for it.
with a plurality.
So
vote.
there should be two of you.
And this, we've
No,
had other ones.
That was
Yeah,
my
so two
second.
things. Like,
That
one
was my
is
second.
that
So wouldn't
the
they
state
be able to
elected,
say, your first ballot has to
And that
count?
was your first.
well, the state electors. So
I
the
didn't
state electors would be decided by the ranked choice voting. And there's actually a separate way that you could do that proportionally, or you could do it the way that we do it. And it's still winner take all on the electors. It's just a ranked choice voting election. And then that gets entered into the electoral college on top of that.
Right.
If we have the electoral college, I'm going to be seriously pushing to pass ranked choice voting nationwide.
Right, okay, well, to add on to that, the process of the doing of this stuff,
But that's just me. That's
are
not.
there,
the
when
organization.
when you're putting together the ranked choice, you're doing a single ballot, will they be announced, okay, this was the first part in the, they're doing it as a single round, all the way around, so the answer comes out, so-and-so is elected?
Oh, no, they're filling out the whole thing.
Right, I'm saying is, but when the announcement comes, or will, it's like if you had runoffs, you'd know who won.
Sure.
Or who got the most votes, and then you know who the second was, and then when you do the runoff election, you decide the winner out of that. I'm saying, is are the people gonna know these steps along the way, or is it all just one?
Oh, no, we see the round results. Like,
Oh, okay,
the
that's what I
results from
mean.
each round are publicly made available.
All right, so the rounds would be visible. I'm saying is that would the feds be able to say round one has to end right there, because for presidential election, there is no runoff. Could they invalidate the top of the ticket because it's a general election where there is
You're not
no-
voting for president, you're voting for the electors.
Right, so the state can make that choice.
Sure.
Okay, that's where I'm getting at.
Yeah.
Saying, if
Yeah,
we
yeah.
run into a federal law, we're just gonna invalidate it.
Can the federal government try to invalidate? The federal government can try to do anything, like, we're learning very quickly, the federal government can try to do a whole heck of a lot of things. Like, and then can we stop them? I don't know.
Well,
So with a ranked choice for electors, the electors' names don't appear on the ballot.
Right.
How, I don't understand how those would be apportioned.
They're not split up. It's just how it's done today. That's the electoral college.
Yeah, but
Right.
you're saying at the state level, ranked choice voting for electors would,
You would be you would be ranking the candidates themselves.
yeah.
And just like today, the electors are this invisible thing that you don't see on your ballot.
No,
Right, so like today, when you go in and you vote for president, you would mark whoever's running for president. And that's not, like, because the electoral college is hyper complicated, like, you are not actually, when you fill in your ballot today, voting for that president, you're voting for a set of electors. This actually was part of the speech to the attempt at stealing the election in 2020 because the Republican Party had a false set of electors that they tried to put up and go and vote for Donald Trump in 2020 instead of Joe Biden, like Michigan voted for. So those are things that are inherent to the Electoral College in the current system we have. When I talk about ranked choice voting, one of the things that I like to talk about is how we are adding voting to a very long list of things that we already rank. Ranking is something that we do every day. It's ubiquitous. Ranking candidates is no more difficult than ranking your top 5 favorite movies, right? People, especially our opponents, like to talk about it like we are adding ranking to voting instead of the other way around. And then they lean into the complications that are inherent in the voting system. The Electoral College is complicated. It's a complicated system designed to make land area have more systemic weight in votes than higher population density. That's the whole game, and that's how it's set up. It's not set up to make each person's vote equal. In the Electoral College, somebody from Wyoming has multiple times more voting power than us, and even more voting power than somebody in California. But that, regardless of how you interact with the Electoral College is going to be complex. The folks that tell me that ranked choice voting is complex defend the Electoral College, but can't tell me how a tie is set.
So we're just going to kind of go.
We've got our
through
count
this.
all counted up. I regret to inform you that Acorn Pumpkin Muffins did not win, but Acorn Pumpkin
Try
Muffins
'em
are
anyway.
in this for the long game. Try them tonight. We will win your vote eventually. We are here working in the local communities. Well, these other muffins, are they here tonight? No. We ended up with 3 candidates who each got 1 vote, and you can tell from the math there that even if Acorn Pumpkin got both votes from the others, Acorn Pumpkin would still lose because you're all terrible. But if now we get to take all 3 of those that are tied for last place, and we're going to redistribute them to their second choice candidates. So here we had 1 vote for Lemon Poppy Seed, and we're just going to cross that out because it got really confusing last time when I forgot to cross them out when I was doing the demo one. And now their second choice is Blueberry. So we're going to, well, actually, we don't want to write that yet because there might be more blueberries. But we're going to move their ballot from the Lemon Poppy Seed category over here to Blueberry. And now the Banana Nut, their second choice is Cinnamon Swirl. So we're going to keep that neck and neck.
Dang.
And then the Acorn Pumpkin vote, I'm sure you're all wondering who that might have been, is going to go to Chocolate Chocolate Chip.
Okay, so this one's going to have 8, this one's going to have 8, and this one's going to have 6. That's right?
Yep. So now Chocolate Chocolate Chip is in last place. So we're going to take the Chocolate Chocolate Chip ballots, and this same mystery voter who voted for Acorn Pumpkin and then Chocolate Chocolate Chip voted for Cinnamon Swirl. So that is another Cinnamon Swirl vote.
Oh, we did
This-
orange cranberry. They put another one down here.
Yes, we had a write-in vote for Orange Cranberry, but I think we would just skip that one and
Yeah,
because it's another write-in
No
vote and there weren't any
fair.
other orange cranberries.
It's not viable because, so you have your list and you have 3 viable candidates.
Yeah.
So.
So their third choice was Blueberry. We had a similar situation here with somebody's second choice was Banana Nut, but their third choice was Cinnamon Swirl. Here, their second choice was Cinnamon Swirl.
Oh, this might work out really nicely.
This one, people really like doing
Demonstrate.
write-in votes for their second choice candidate. That's some interesting
Strawberry
data.
cheesecake, we had strawberry
Yeah,
cheesecake.
strawberry cheesecake, but then their third choice was cinnamon swirl.
Sounds good.
And this last one, second choice was blueberry. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 for blueberry.
My candidate won.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 for cinnamon swirl. And so even though my choice got eliminated several times in a row, I still got to have a voice in making sure that we didn't put fruit in the muffins.
You have to have the deciding vote. You have to have the deciding vote. Because otherwise it would have been a tie.
Yeah.
And if this were a straight up plurality vote in the first round, it would have been a tie. Coin flip, draw a straw, not actual democracy, just random chance, Las Vegas democracy. But the thing that's more important, because we can't actually tell how this would have been run in today's system, because these folks probably wouldn't run. Maybe one of them does. Probably wouldn't run. This one probably wouldn't have run. This person probably would have been given a $200,000 check not to run. So one of these two, so Big Cinnamon can go have a swirl at it. You know? I don't think that's what happened. I think this is how the voters actually like the cinnamon swirl.
It's good.
How is that not a cinnamon roll?
It's a muffin.
Like, that's pretentious, I'm sorry.
Cinnamon roll, it rises, it has yeast that rises. That's a muffin.
That's, yeah, that's right. Because it's baking soda in the, okay.
It's cakey. Muffins are cakey.
I'm glad I asked, actually.
Is there petitions around? I haven't seen a petition.
So generally, I don't, so I have petitions in my car.
I've got not only do I have petitions you can sign, I have clipboards if you want to sign up to volunteer. So if you can go right from not having signed yet, all the way to being one of our volunteers tonight if you want to.
Volunteer, like, we need folks to bring a petition home even on our clipboard and get some signatures from folks around the campfire, you know? It's not like you need to go out and grind, hang out at the watering hole in Hesperia, or the swimming hole in Hesperia or whatever. I'm trying to think of the bar downtown. I don't know if you still have Angela's and Ricardo's there. I don't. My parents were interesting folks growing up, so we got to spend time in interesting places. No, I really, really appreciate being here. I love our volunteer. I have one of your petitions that you didn't sign that you need to sign.
Oh, cool.
But not here. It's at my, unfortunately, it's in Grand Rapids.
I hope an easy question for you.
I hope so too.
I loved your presentation, but I can't retain everything you said. You made many good points. I tried to write them down. Here's what I'm asking. This is a simple question. If I wanted to find an executive summary written somewhere, why this is such a good thing, so that I could later explain it to my skeptical friends, where do I go?
So rankbyvote.org, Rank by Vote, Lake Michigan. I was about to say, take that video, pull the transcript, copy it into an AI, and have it tell you.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to advocate using
So
AI for that. No, we have the resources already.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Well, that's great. Thank you.
Yeah, and our social medias are really good, especially the video explainers. If someone, like, you want to give someone a 2-minute explanation about the counting process, we have that Lego video. It's super, super simple to see. And the thing that you don't need to be able to tell this whole presentation, right? The only thing you need to say is that when the candidates are trying to gain your second and your third choice, they have to stop attacking each other and actually talk about the issues. We're lowering the temperature.
And she's videotaping us, so you'll be able to see this presentation on live.
That's one heck of a microphone, too.
And any other questions? Did it help clarify things for you?
If you all need someone to do barbecue, get at me though. Uncle Keith Spalding is like the best smoker you'll ever meet. He'll haul his truck down from Hesperia.
Okay, just a reminder, December 2nd, we have the Money Out of Politics it's an important thing to do. And also, we have a donation box here. There is an expense that goes into creating these forums and getting the handouts and, you know, all of the materials. So if you have an inclination to donate to our cause, we would really appreciate it. It's very needed. Everything's expensive these days, right?
Yeah, can I give a quick shout out to that petition, the next one you're gonna go over? The Mop Up Michigan petition is super important. It's not just getting money out of politics, right? It's stopping some of the most obscene corruption in our legislature and our local government tied to these utility companies they're just bleeding us dry. They're bleeding us dry. I have cheap power. My power is socialist in Holland. Betsy DeVos's mom. We have community solar or community gas power. You all hear about Holland streets that melt their own ice. That's the water, the coolant water from that city-owned power plant, and it's super cheap. And the utilities are really milking all of us. That's the reality, and the outages are outrageous. Sorry.
You mentioned earlier about which roles, can't phrase this, would be through ranked choice voting in Michigan. Is that like our federal, like our reps that go to Washington, governor, everybody? Or is that, can you restate?
Yeah. So it's U.S. President,
Okay.
U.S. Senate, it's U.S. Congress, those are the members of the House that go to D.C., and then governor. And those are the ones that are both the primary and the general. And then for just the general, it's the Attorney General and Secretary of State.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. I was under the impression that we didn't have the primary at all for the ranked choice voting.
So that's actually something that the first time I heard someone say this, it was one of the Republican county clerks in one of those conversations that supposedly didn't happen. So, I'm not saying they didn't happen, no. He's like, yeah, we wouldn't really need primaries, would we? I'm like, some of these folks don't actually want clerk to be a partisan position. That's a fun game, is to ask your county clerk if they think that should be a partisan position. A lot of them don't.
Well, it's a good question, though. What about primaries? Is there a pro and con to even having them?
Here.
Well, I mean, the con is the expense, and the pro is that you have an extra layer of attention on voting for the election. There's other cons too. The partisanship is also kind of implied there. And there's also a lot of different ways you can run them. You can run primaries like in Michigan where we have to pick a ballot. You can run a full-on open primary with a top 2 or a top 4. And there's a lot of talk about primary reform out there. That's not, that's one of the areas of voting reform that I'm not a full-on expert in. So, but definitely stuff worth looking at. I mean, the thing that we know about ranked choice voting is it really is a simple change at the top of the ballot, but the thing that we're delivering is huge. So when we look at the ways we're running our primaries, if we wanted to change that up, yeah, that could have big impacts, and we'd have to look into what all of them were.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be wondering what primaries are as much for building the party that you're trying to platform. I mean, so if you're saying, well, they're not going to have primaries now, wouldn't the ability to work grassroots and large group be compromised?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not advocating for eliminating primaries.
Yeah,
so,
okay,
yeah.
there, just-
It's a thought.
Mentioned, it was like, oh,
Okay, well, we have some lovely Girl Scout cookies over here, and do not forget to try one of the acorn pumpkin muffins.